You know, Kent, you're right. That cowboy lifestyle is definitely unique and a little bit different even around Christmas time. For most people, Christmas is a time of hope and joy, home, family, and celebration. But for the great American cowboy, Christmas on the plains was an altogether different proposition. His home consisted of a plain, crude bunkhouse or line shack shared together with the other cowboys. And that was during the good times. But you know, for the most part, his home was the wide open spaces of the untamed West and the cattle trails which had become the pipelines of the 1800s for moving beef to be sold. There were seemingly endless ranges, cactus, scrub brush, mountains and valleys, rocks, rivers and streams, desert sand, sagebrush, and tumbleweeds. He knew it all. There was rain, hail, thunder and lightning, scorching sun and heat, merciless wind and dust storms, numbing cold, sleet, and snow. But as for a cowboy's hope and joy, well, whether at Christmas time or any other time of the year, it was measured by and focused on the simple, down-to-earth values that were such a vital part of his daily life. As for his spiritual needs, well, these too were governed by the realities of life as he knew it. His sanctuary was most often the heavens themselves, the moon and the stars. His choir, more than likely the incessant bawl of the cattle, the screech of an owl, perhaps the lonesome sound of the whippoorwill, the chirping of the crickets, or the distant eerie howl of the coyote lost in its haunting chorus. Occasionally a traveling preacher might come through camp and share a word from the good book, bring news from other trail camps, but for the most part, the cowboy's concept of life, faith, and heaven were measured in terms of his own surroundings. His devotion to and relationship with his Creator was very personal, spent in times of quiet introspection, reflection, and expression. To a cowboy, the places where he worshiped, they were truly fashioned by the hand of the Lord. But you know, boys, if you stop and think about it, there's actually some pretty interesting similarities between the cowboy life and what we read about that very first Christmas. Why, what if that first Christmas had been set in the Old West? Say about the late 1800s, instead of Bethlehem 2,000 years ago. After all, it seems kind of interesting that the angels first appeared to the shepherds, watching over their flocks late one night. Can you imagine? Why, it could have just as easily been a bunch of cowboys out sitting around a campfire, swapping stories about the strays they'd rounded up that day, or maybe how Joe managed to keep from getting thrown and his Bronco spooked at that old Sidewinder. Seems like the good book went out of its way to point out how important the message of that little baby born in a barn, of who he really was, for that message to reach everyone. Everyone from the men watching the livestock to kings and noblemen. Everyone, including that old cowboy who lived in a simpler place, a simpler time, with simple values. Everyone, including you and me. You know, it's funny how they all had the same reaction when they heard that news. A strong urge to drop everything and go worship that newborn king. You know, boys, maybe no matter who we are or where we're from, even what our background is, maybe we just ought to do the same.
It's a silent night out on the prairie. All the cattle are milling around. There's a bright prairie star o'er the mountains afar. In the air, there's a heavenly sound.